Okay, I want to focus primarily on brushes and masks and make this kind of a task-based tutorial at first, and then we'll move on eventually to a project. But I created this quickly. It's a sketch model entirely with brushes and masks. So let's look at what we can do quickly from kind of scratch. So here's just a base automotive form and different things you can do with different brushes. The move tool is fantastic for just changing proportions. We might decide that this model needs to be a little more rounded up front, and I will tend to use a very large move brush so that if I do make some major modifications, I'm not really messing up any edges. Okay. So move brush can be fantastic. The standard brush by default is set to 0 right here, and what that's going to give me is kind of this interesting bulge right here. If I hold down Alt, it will cut in. This should be common knowledge. I tend to shift and blend out the beginning and ending of most of the strokes. It'll also relax the vertices as I do that, which is something I like to do. What I also like to do is change the brush modifier from 0, which is the default, and push it up to around 70. And what that's going to do is it will pinch as it raises. So I'll get a tighter line. And then smooth that out. Especially blend out the beginning and end. Okay. So that's a pretty cool tool. I like the clay buildup. It's just simply to build things up, smooth them back down. It's really quick. It also allows me to, let's throw some rear form down there, make this a little more muscle car. It also does this kind of neat thing where it leaves a big flat edge. If I smooth that back out, if that's something that I wanted to keep, I would come back in and probably use the pinch brush and tighten that edge up. And that lower edge, and then smooth it back out again to relax those vertices. That's going to catch some light down there and strengthen the side. Okay, another tool that is wonderful is the high polish brush, to simply come in and look for design lines and feature lines. It smooths, and as it's smoothing, it's also creating an edge and polishing. So I might take this and fix some of the strangeness that's happening in the hood. I'll tend to find a number of shapes when I use this, kind of happy accidents that I can use later. Like that can make a really interesting area for the headlights. Okay, I'm not planning on really doing a design right now. It's mostly just looking at a few of the brush tools that I might use in creating designs. So I want to catch all that light right there and break that up. Alright. Okay, that's enough with the brushes, I think. It's time to look at masking. Masking can be done a number of ways. By default, it will be on freehand or dots, and we could just simply come in and start painting out a mask. It might make sense actually in this case to go to the geometry and divide this vehicle up so it's a little bit higher resolution. Maybe go one more time. And then when I paint this, I'll get a much tighter mask. So something a bit more useful. Okay, different ways to select and deselect masks. I can hold down Control and then Alt and paint out that mask. I want to get it a little bit tighter and crisper. I can hold down Control and click, Control click, and it will toggle the mask. If I wanted to soften this, I would Control click into the mask and it will pull into the mask, which in this case I want to keep it tight, so that's not what I want to do, but it's important to know how to do that. And let's Control click, invert this mask, and use the Move brush. Make it fairly large and pull this into the body. I could leave it like this with a straight, kind of clean, well, fairly clean edge, which we might want to clean up, or, you know, downriver, if this went to an engineering package or alias or another, I could just let those guys take care of it. But in this case, let's smooth this out. So Shift and just allow the relaxing of the vertices to kind of clean up that edge. Maybe Control click on the mask and just soften that edge just a little tiny bit. Control swipe. So you can come up with some pretty interesting form that way. I also like using the lasso. What's great about the lasso is, let's see if we wanted to maybe work on these windows. Control get that, then Control Alt to unselect or deselect. It's a little bit get rid of some of that. Strengthen that just a little bit. Okay. Control click to invert that. If it's not, if I want to tighten this up, I can also go down to the masking tab under the tools, and we can sharpen the mask. We can blur the mask, grow the mask, a number of things, but this should be fine right here. So come back in with this Move brush, make it really big, and pull that in. Not that big. Okay, that's going to be good enough. And I'm going to invert the mask. Control click to soften it just a little bit. Wanted to kind of blend into the window. Let's Control click this again and let's smooth out that edge just a little bit. This one I wanted to maintain that edge, but at the same time soften things. Maybe relax some of this too. Control swipe to release that mask. And so those are tools that make designing a car really quite nice. One last trick with this, if I hold down Control, change the stroke to a circle, make it center and maybe square. Control drag this mask, and go into side view and turn off perspective. Try to find where that wheel should be. It's amazing how much overhang a Ferrari has or a Lamborghini has. I find that's actually not remotely uncommon, but maybe because we're designing we can push this a little bit forward too. I'm not happy with that. Let's do that right there. Okay, so we've got this shape right here. Invert that, and rather than use the move tool, I will use the transform move. Scale from the top. We'll talk about these tools in a little bit, but I guess I'll talk about them right now, just so it's clear. So that's pretty heavy right there. I'm going to undo that and soften it. Control click. And so what these tools do, I'll just pull it in a little ways. Allow that to be good enough. Go back to draw and smooth this off a little bit. So the move tools, transform tools, just to be aware of what they are and what they do. There's a move tool which, if I turn off symmetry, if you want to move an object, you use the center of the center circle. If I want to scale from here to any other point, I would scale like this, and it's going to basically be using that as a pivot point. If I were to scale, I want to scale from the ends, and it will scale from one pivot point to the other, and this will scale properly. If I wanted to scale one axis, I would use this center, and rotation rotates from the pivot to pivot, as well as around the pole right here, so that will twirl it around the pole. That's pretty much all you need to know for those tools. They're pretty amazing, and luckily I can always jump back like that. Jump forward if I want to put those wheels back in. Okay. I don't want to like really finish this. It's not a design I'm super excited about, but hopefully we've talked enough about the brushes and the masks so that when we jump into the project, there's no confusion.